Weapons, directed by Zach Kreger. Like many film fans, this is one of my most anticipated films of 2025, following his directorial debut, Barbarian, which I absolutely loved. You could see in my trailer reaction for Weapons, I say that aside from Nosferatu, Barbarian is one of the only horror films that I've seen multiple times in theaters. So how does Weapons measure up? I think it's a really good movie, but I think I prefer Barbarian still. This movie is very good. I don't really have problems with the script per se because the film is divided into chapters. And I heard someone in my theater say, if they took out one of those chapters, it would have been better. But for the most part, I feel like my theater really loved the film. I went to a new theater last night and the theater was very expressive and it felt like a really good time because everyone was very enthusiastic about the film. So that definitely helped with my experience. But I don't think there was a problem with the perspectives, the chapters. Personally, I feel like the film was a little bit underwhelming for me. But I feel like everything else was great. So I'll get into those reasons specifically why I think it was underwhelming. So I feel like I had a little bit of a similar experience to A24's Bring Her Back. With that film, I felt like the film did not meet my expectations, but not because the film did anything wrong. Just because I expected a very unsettling, dark film, and instead Bring Her Back was a little bit more on the dramatic side. But I'll put the link in the description so you could see my full thoughts on Bring Her Back. But here with Weapons, I feel like it didn't meet my expectations and I do have a problem with that. I don't think it's like Bring Her Back where it's okay. Here, I feel like once you learn what or who the villain is, once that gets unveiled, I feel like the film begins to plateau a bit. So I feel like we're following all these perspectives and they're all essential. They all feed the story. But I feel like once we learn this and we get to this chapter towards the end, I feel like the film didn't continue building. It shortly ends after that. And for me, it felt like underwhelming. It felt like it plateaued. And I would have wanted it to be a little bit more crazier, a little more bigger, or maybe just darker to capitalize on this darkness. And I feel like that didn't happen personally. And then that brings me to the comedy. So Barbarian has a lot of comedy. And for those of you who don't know, Zach Kreger is like Jordan Peele, where he started in comedy sketch writing. And I feel like the comedy in Barbarian totally works. I feel like it's very authentic, very organic. It always makes sense. It never makes me feel like you're taking away from the seriousness and the horror. Here, I do feel like a couple times it took away from the tension. It took away from the horror. And I have a problem with that. I like most of the comedy. It works for the most part. But just a couple times I was like, now I'm not taking this serious. And it clearly was intentional by Zach, So I don't know if that's a problem. It's just my personal experience was hindered by that. So that kind of sucks, But I gotta say, I think that's pretty much it. I don't feel like I hated the script or I hated the acting or I hated the direction the story went in or anything major like that. It just was a bit underwhelming, like I said, but very good nonetheless. The performances, of course, are great. I mean, this cast is almost all A-listers. Very good cast. It's funny how most of them, if not all of them, of the major cast are in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, which is interesting. Something that I saw in an interview with Zach Kreger was that very inspired by Denis Villeneuve's Prisoners with this film, on the overall aesthetic, the camera, the color grading, the houses, the neighborhoods. And dude, I can't unsee it. It's so apparent, and even some story beats and some characters reflect characters in Prisoners. So if you haven't seen Prisoners, I highly recommend that film as prep in terms of tone. That film is not a horror film, but it's very akin to it. It's crazy and after I saw the trailer, I actually thought about Prisoners a lot. Just small town, kids, darkness, parents involved with the cops. There's so many little similarities, and now I know I wasn't crazy. Now I know it was a very intentional inspiration for the film. So that was great because I love Prisoners, and yeah, the cinematography was very good, very controlled, clean movements, a lot of wonders, but not flashy wonders, and just I just really love the actual filmmaking of this film. And yeah, Zach Kreger is great still. I don't think this was a bad film at all. This is a very good film, and I wouldn't blame people for loving it and giving it like a 10 out of 10, It's just for me a bit disappointing. But when it comes down to it, it all comes down to experience, And I honestly did have a great experience with this film because of the crowd I was with, but also just the film was compelling. The scares got me. A lot of jump scares, but they weren't cheap jump scares. They were always scares that you saw coming, but they still got you. So, that's still good as long as they're effective, as long as it's not a needless jump scare. Like there's tension building and a cat jumps out, then it's like, okay, great. But yeah, all in all, really good film. I would recommend it to horror fans. Honestly, I would recommend this to non-horror fans actually. I don't think it's too scary, and I don't think it's too dark to where a non-horror fan will be like, oh, I regret watching that, it was too much for me. I really do think it was a pretty good film, pretty good dramatic film. Again, some good comedy in it as well. So can't wait for whatever Zach Cregger brings us next, because he's 2 for 2 now. I mean, he's still a great filmmaker and certainly a great writer. So let me know your thoughts on my thoughts, and let me know your thoughts on Weapons. Thanks for watching.